I like Gibbs. He's an airback. In this league, you got to be a prototypical airback. You got to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield. He can do that. He will be fast on that turf. But they have other backs. I just didn't like the idea of picking one here. I think they had other needs.
I was stunned they did what they did at number 12.
When the Lions draft just signed David Montgomery, and then after trading out of the 6th pick, traded back up to the 12th pick in hopes of getting their guy. And that guy was another running back. But Brad Holmes and company must have known something that day. While fans and analysts scratched their heads, the celebrations inside the Lions war room were off the charts. They knew they'd got what they wanted, and it didn't take long for them to prove it to everybody else. In the early weeks of Gibbs' rookie campaign, he was used sparingly. Surely Detroit hadn't spent top 12 draft capital on a secondary running back with less than 10 touches a game. He showed flashes in week 3 with 17 carries for 80 yards against Atlanta, but the game that really ignited his career in the pros and showed the NFL world exactly why the Lions drafted him came in week 8. David Montgomery was sidelined for a couple of weeks in the middle of the season, forcing Gibbs into the primary role in week 7. He scored his first touchdown against Baltimore that week, and there were certainly signs of that explosiveness that had made him such a tantalizing prospect. Then in week 8, he jumped off the page, helping the Lions to a win over the Raiders despite the team struggling to look after the football and avoid turnovers. Gibbs started out between the tackles, a role that many had questioned his capability of as a draft prospect. The former Georgia Tech turned Alabama talent had never had 1,000 yards in a college football season, nor carried the heavy workload of an every down running back. When he did run between the tackles at Alabama, he was largely running through wide open lanes and could pick up 5 to 6 yards before he ran into the first sign of contact. In the NFL, that changed drastically. Lanes are filled with blue chip talent. But Jahmyr Gibbs went to work, and there were glimmers of that acceleration through the gap when he found it. When they drafted him, Dan Campbell talked about the way he plays, like a receiver, so it was no surprise to see him catching passes, and the Lions went to him several times early in this game in order to set up play action and passes deeper down the field a little later on. Gibbs in space is frightening, and you could see it right away in what was only his second game as the primary back. Watch him catch this pass here out of the right side and then hit the gas. Watch him catch this pass here out on the right side and then hit the gas. He goes 0 to 60 in a flash, one of the quickest in the league. That burst was a warning shot, and the Raiders clearly weren't prepared. Gibbs was quickly proving his capability as a pass catcher with a couple of quick catches underneath before splitting out as a receiver. He motions inside to the slot and once again collects the quick pass from Jared Goff. He slips his first tackler and again turns upfield before he's brought down. While Gibbs was getting a feel for life as an NFL starter, every now and then you will still run into the likes of Max Crosby. The Lions audible into a bunch here and Goff goes under center, calling a run inside, but Crosby has different ideas and blows it up. The edge defender gets the upper hand here, but it wouldn't be that way for the rest of the game. For a while, the Raiders did a good job, slowing the run inside and refusing to bite on the eye candy with the motion. But Detroit stuck with their plan in this game, leaning heavily into the run and short pass early before starting to pick up chunk yardage later in the game over the middle of the field. But as this game developed, you could see the rookie running back warming up for a big play. This time he gets through the gap before Crosby could drag him down off the far edge. Gibbs then follows the pulling guard through the gap and uses his block as a springboard for the run. Now he's in the open field with only one man to beat. Since this game, we've learned that this is exactly the type of situation that turns into touchdowns for the Lions, and we'll get to a couple of those at the end of the video. But here, credit to the defense, Marcus Epps is able to at least get a decent angle and shut Gibbs' run down. Just a moment late on that though, and he's got the sideline and probably scores. Again, the warnings were there, and you could just tell it was coming. Watch him turn this dump off into a first down. At the snap, he flares out to the left and Goff checks it down to him. With the help of one of his offensive linemen, he slips the first defender and starts to work his way back across the field. He's then too fast for the linebacker whose tackle attempt falls flat, and now it's off to the races down the opposite sideline. His speed, burst, and intelligence reading the field allowed him to turn what could have been a 1-yard catch stuffed at the line into a chunk gain and a chain mover. And now we're resorting to cheating to slow him down. The Raiders were learning all about the threat that Jahmyr Gibbs poses and starting to run out of ideas as to how to slow him down. The offensive line did a great job here to create the lane, and I want to recognize it. From this angle at the snap, you can see the left guard pull while the center cracks back to block to his left. The right guard lets his man through and immediately climbs to the second level, leaving the pulling guard to seal that free rusher out of the play. The result is this beautiful window for Gibbs to run through untouched, then navigating his way round his guard's block. Had 41 not grabbed a hold of his jersey, it could have been significantly more yards. Still, he drew the flag and the Lions get the yards plus the penalty. Credit must be given to Detroit's offensive line though. It's a special group, a top 3 unit in the league for sure. And while Sonic and Knuckles grabbed the headlines, none of it would work without the well-oiled machine that is the Lions' offensive line group. The delayed handoff here catches the defense off guard, and look at Sam Laporta and Penei Sewell immediately get to the second level to take these 2 linebackers out of the play. Gibbs gets outside of the rush and gets north and south in a hurry, bundles through one of his own teammates and keeps going. Now, it looked like this play might be over right here. There are 3 defenders in front of him and another 2 right behind, but Gibbs' spin move opens up the field, and this right here is one of the things that makes him one of the most explosive threats in football. This is sprinter level acceleration from an almost standstill. Out of that spin move, he gets back to full speed so quickly that these defenders are unable to wrap him up, and he slips another tackle to keep it moving. Now, eventually they get him down, but it takes a group effort, and he picked up 20 plus yards before they could get him on the ground. For Lions fans, this was the game that sold them on the idea to spend a top 12 draft pick on a second piece to add to your running back room. It was bold, but it was paying off, and we haven't even got to the good stuff yet. I do think that this mold with Gibbs and Montgomery is maybe a mold that other teams will start to replicate further down the line. After all, there are not that many workhorse running backs who can be top 5 on their own, so why not have 2? In the second half, Gibbs was starting to get the edge a lot more. 21 played this one really well, keeping outside contain as well as making the tackle, but on the next one, Gibbs put the Lions inside the 5. Ball on the 21-yard line, the Lions get a great seal on this outside run with their 2 tight ends. Brock Wright and Sam Laporta close off the defenders, and Gibbs gets around the edge. He then takes it down to the 4-yard line, putting the offense on a 1st and goal less than 5 yards out. At this point, Gibbs is having arguably the best game of his young career already and continued to fight between the tackles. He somehow burst out the back of this pile, and while he didn't get much more out of it, he's far more capable of fighting through contact on inside runs than he was given credit for. He might not be as much of a battering ram as David Montgomery can be, but he's still not at all easy to get on the ground. And finally, we've arrived at one of the best runs of the 2023 season and a well-deserved touchdown. The Lions are 27 yards out, with Gibbs lined up in the backfield of a 2 tight end set. He takes the handoff inside, but is greeted by a pile of bodies and a mess of blocks. Now, to get through the gap that he gets through and still make this outside defender miss with pure speed is such a dangerous combination of talent. It's rare. He has to jump stop him. He sprints into the end zone for a 27-yard touchdown on what was an incredibly impressive run. The same thing here with one of the same runs that we saw early in the game. This run isn't going anywhere off the snap. Crosby gets round the edge, the O-line is dealing with pressure up the middle, and Gibbs runs right into the back of one of his own guys. But rather than the play crumble, he shoots a gap to his right, narrowly dodging Crosby's outstretched arm and then slipping another desperate tackle. He then reads the block of his receiver in real time, so cuts inside to make the most of it and ends up turning what looked like a lost play into a first down. And I'm going to play this run like 3 times at full speed before I slow it down, and just watch the speed that Gibbs changes direction to dodge 41 in the hole. Now watch it from this angle. He leaves the guy standing by himself in the backfield, wondering what happened. It's so stupidly fast that you have to actually slow it down to appreciate it. Look at that. That is phenomenal. Remember when Max Crosby caught him earlier in the game? Yeah, it only happened once. Since then, we've seen Gibbs slip him at least 3 times, and here's another. Crosby is coming free off the edge, but still can't get to Gibbs as he darts inside him and breaks through the line. Again, the shift in speed to throttle down, use lateral quickness to cut back, and then burst out into the open field again is insane. Like, just so good. And it takes a safety holding on for dear life to bring him down. Once again, though, chunk gain and right around the first down marker. Jahmyr Gibbs took center stage in this game and showed exactly why the Lions had him right up there among their very favorite talents in the draft. Brad Holmes hinted to the idea that there might not have been anybody they'd rather have, and he liked the potential enough to trade back up into the top 12 to get him. The game against the Raiders was only the beginning, and since then he's gotten better and better with every passing week. The combination of Sonic and Knuckles in Detroit has been electrifying to watch, and in 2024, they are almost unstoppable. Now fast forward to his second season in 2024, and look at this rep against Minnesota. They motion into I formation and hand the ball off to Gibbs on a C-gap run to the right. Amon-ra Brown gets a great block on the edge to spring it, allowing Gibbs to get to full speed around the edge. He has another great block from Tim Patrick on the outside, and then it's just Gibbs and the safety. And you do not want to be that safety. He leaves him for dead and he's gone. It's stunning. And from that second angle, that beater on the safety is every bit as good. If you give Jahmyr Gibbs this one-on-one look, he's going to win nearly every time. He's too fast, too shifty, and too smart with his runs to get caught out. The safety barely stands a chance, and that's a huge touchdown. The star, and anybody who doubted the pick and the value the Lions placed on the running back has swallowed that opinion in a hurry. Credit has to be given to Brad Holmes and his team. They've drafted incredibly well in recent years with insane value, and the Detroit Lions are on the very edge of going all the way. So could 2024 be their year? How long does their Super Bowl window last? Let me know in the comments down below.